Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Wadi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is actually a recurring guest and a very good friend of mine. And I'm so excited to have her back on this podcast. And we're going to talk about processes, procedures, branding, everything. So, Marina Byezhanova.
I'm so excited to be back, Addie. I think it's the first time that I'm back on a podcast and really looking forward to diving in and doing an update and catching up with you.
Let's do that. So, Marina, of course, I first of all have to read your bio, which is an amazing bio, so our listeners know who you are. So you are on a mission to scale the reach of people's voices, which I love that sentence. I mean, it's definitely, each one of us have a unique voice, and you're out there to make sure that we have that brand and it's being listened to and visible. And you're the co-founder of a personal branding agency called Brand of a Leader, which we talked about on our previous episode. So there is a whole history of how you got started and what Brand of a Leader is all about. And I'm going to include the show notes for that episode so our listeners can listen to it as well, because I think it's important that they get to know you and they understand how you started the company and what it is all about. And you've been quoted and referenced in publications such as Forbes, Fast Company, Success Magazine, Wall Street Journal, and the Financial Post. And you've spoken to audiences and entrepreneurs and business executives all over. I mean, I heard you in the Philippines. We were both speaking there 2 years ago. I heard you on a stage recently in LA. I heard you definitely on a stage in Montreal. So all over you are, you're a great speaker and your presence is amazing. And you definitely command the audience. So people should listen to your podcast, go see you live if they can. Absolutely a treat. And your purpose is to help entrepreneurs realize and express their greatness. So you're a proud member of Entrepreneur Organization, we both are, and you're presently part of the Global Learning Ambassadors Committee, among other things. That's not the only thing you do. You just step up and take leadership roles. And Marina, I just have to tell our audience that, I met you before, but then we met again in Montreal where we had a women's summit, and you were the one who organized the entire summit. And I've been to many events and I organized events myself, but seeing you organize that event and the spectacular work that you did was unbelievable. It's complete professionalism, almost perfectionism, but without the stress around it. It was just like all the details just fell into place. And what I admire most is that you did seamlessly. Maybe inside it wasn't seamlessly, but on the outside, you just showed up and things were just rolling and going. And it was a 3-day event and it takes a lot to organize it. But everything was just spectacular. So thank you for that, and really good job, because that really shows how competent you are.
Thank you. That really means a lot to me. That event, I think, is one of the highlights of anything that I've created over the course of my career. And so hearing the impact, it was hugely impactful for me. So hearing the impact that it made on you as well, and everything that you had to say is just incredibly valuable to me. And thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. So let's talk about Brand of a Leader. We talked about before how you got started. Maybe we can do a little bit. I mean, the listeners should listen to that episode, but just a little abbreviated version so we know where you got started and where you are today. And then we'll talk about the future and what personal branding means and where you're taking it to.
Of course, and things have changed because certainly since our last conversation, we, as so many businesses, got massively affected by AI, and that changed many things within the business as well. So, Brandable Leader is a personal branding agency specifically for CEOs and founders. Sometimes they're executive teams as well, Gen Xers, but usually CEOs and successful business founders. They are, at later in their career, so they're Gen Xers across the globe. And what we do is I'm interviewing heavily right now, and I'm always explaining our younger hires that we do not build up influencers. We're not, Instagram, TikTok, make me famous type of thing. We work with people who often would rather be behind the scenes building their business than in front of the business, showing their face and building their personal brand. But they realize that it's such a crucial and key part of the marketing mix of really any organization right now, that's where we support them. So we help them build thought leadership, and we've worked with executives. I always say in 12 countries. My co-founder corrects me saying it's been much more than 12 countries now, so I need to update it. But really, we've been fortunate to work with leaders who we help build thought leadership for really across the globe.
Right. And you have a great process to do that. I mean, it's you're interviewing them, you're really extracting who that person is in order to build a brand, right?
We're exceptionally process oriented. And this is one of the things I mentioned to you last time too. When this is what we heard from prospective clients who would become clients, and we would ask them, why did you choose us versus another branding agency, another personal branding agency? Because we have so much competition now. And very often, among other things, but something that we would hear very frequently is, I love how either some would say how process oriented you are, or some would say you're just so structured, you're so clear. I like your process, I like your method. So we've heard this a lot from people who would choose us to work with. And so we've continued that. We're now looking at launching a new division. And the key conversation is, what's our process? The person who is going to be key in executing in that division says, let's just try it. Let's just do things. But our MO is, no, we create a process, then we see what needs to be adjusted, but there needs to be a baseline process first. So that's been since the beginning.
It's beautiful. And I'm so happy you say that. And we had the conversation before, but it's a new conversation, newly. A lot of creative things. Oh yeah, let's just jump and do it, and let's just do it. Let's see what happens. I don't need a process. But it's really a waste of time for the client if you don't have a process, because then how are you going to ever figure out their brand, right?
Very much so. And it also, well, and then for everything, right? How can you improve anything? Because you don't see, right? If there's no method, how do you improve it? What is the differentiating advantage for others? How do you track hours with the team? So for sure, for us all at the team, most of us are creatives. We want to just jump in and who cares and let's figure it out. But that does not lend itself to anything scalable. And so we have to fight against that and create processes, which also there are people on the team who are less creative and are very methodical. When things do get messy, it really disrupts them and they can't perform. So it's been key to us externally, but also very much so internally.
For sure, for sure. You mentioned AI, that many businesses got affected by AI. So what do you see from your perspective of how AI affected your industry?
So as we help our clients build their visibility, a big part of what we do is we create written content for them, right? So with our clients, we manage their LinkedIn and we do PR work as well. From content creation perspective, we don't do Instagram, we don't do TikTok for them. We manage their LinkedIn and we write thought leadership articles for them. Well, what happened when ChatGPT hit the market is all of us felt, well, I'm a writer now. I can write. I could never write before, but now I can write because I have this, writing tool. And everyone started using it, right? And it became not only like something that was available, but it was cool to use, right? Like CEOs and business owners, we would get together and be like, I'm using it. I just created 100 articles with it. I just created 1,000 LinkedIn posts, right? And that was a cool thing to do. And so so that meant a lot of our clients felt that they didn't need us anymore to be creating content for them and charging $1,000 to $1,500 a month to do so. And we started losing clients. And first, we went into the denial part of the grieving process, as many of our competitors too. We were having a lot of conversations with other agencies, and we said, well, GPT created content is just not as good. which we can all agree on, it is not as good. And so it doesn't matter. The client who appreciates it will still stay with us. So that was a short period of denial, but we were losing clients. And then we sat down and we said, okay, well, look, yes, the content we create is better. However, let's just look at reality. Number one, GPT is only going to get better. And I'm saying GPT, but it's all of those, like all of the tools, right? So it's only going to get better, right? Number one. Number two, essentially, we just got a competitor who's not as good, but free or $20 a month and cool to be using. So very interestingly, for a lot of our clients, we are the best kept secret. They don't want anyone to know that they're working with us because they feel that because they're working with a quote unquote ghostwriter, even though we're not really a ghostwriter, we interview them and write content that they provided to us, but they're working with a ghostwriter, that's not authentic. But for some reason, because they're the ones using AI to create content, even though AI creates a generic content for them, they feel that's authentic, and then they would go post. And so that was the reality. We said, well, it's a competitor that's cool to use. It's free or $20 a month. It's only going to get better. What are we going to do? And so we did a lot of restructuring internally, which changed our internal processes as well to be able to embrace AI as a tool instead of fighting against it. And of course, over time, a lot of our, prospective clients or previous clients who left or didn't engage with us because they could do it themselves, got tired of using an AI tool, started looking at where can I save time. And also, it became less cool to be spending time on it. And they came back to us as well. But it's changed a core piece of our business on how we
Oh, for sure. But I like that. I like how the perspective of you, how you're mentioning it. I heard it from my business, people say, oh yeah, but AI probably changed it. Now, from us, it's different because I am trying to figure out the AI tool that will actually change it. So there are AI tools that maybe can write work instructions, but we do not write work instructions. We write the why, the best practices, extract the knowledge. So for us, it was really differentiating ourselves from the AI. But I like how you actually said it as a competitor. It's a perceived competitor, but it's not necessarily a competitor. Mm-hmm. So what did you do in order to actually differentiate yourself from using AI?
It's fascinating. It can be like a whole conversation also on AI because it's really interesting for me to see clients that we've worked with in the past that were so particular about the fact that, we're not fully capturing their voice sometimes because that's a process to fully capture an individual's voice. It's not the same as a corporate brand voice. It takes some time, right? And they were very nuanced that, I wanted to sound exactly like me. And now I'm seeing them post on LinkedIn and it's so AI generated, all the M dashes and it's not this, it's that, and like very cliche endings to post. I'm like, this sounds like everyone else, but now you're embracing it because again, using AI today is cool, and so that's like a sign of I'm cool, I'm using it. So to answer your question, what did we do? Well, we let go of all of our writers, which was 7 writers on the team at the time, which was substantial to us. We were a team of, I believe, 21, and losing 7 writers, that's a third of the team gone. And instead, we over-index of investing in really top high quality editors. And so what we say is that we still leverage AI for a lot of text mining, but then it goes insane humanization, sometimes too much. A funny story today, but maybe less appropriate for the podcast from a client. Sometimes it's too humanized, that we go for, but that becomes a differentiating advantage because someone still needs to do it, right? Someone still needs to conduct the interview. Someone still needs to think of some, extract some original thinking from the client. Putting it into a tool to get the first version of the text is a very small part. Then with this extensive human editing piece, the content becomes really high level. That's not it. That was one of the things that we did. So we tell our clients, we over-index on really top-notch editing. That's the value that you're getting. So number one. Number two, we said, well, what else can we add to our services? How can we bundle our services so that there's more value to the customer than a standalone service of, let's say, LinkedIn content? That's when we started offering podcast outreach to our clients, booking them as guests on podcast. And that became a big part of the process. So it's more of a bundle. We're now expanding it into more quote unquote traditional PR. So we're expanding into our clients, not just seen as a LinkedIn content writer, but we're really building their visibility through several platforms.
Interesting. What would be those platforms?
So number one, so there's LinkedIn. That's what we've been doing. Booking as guests on podcast. Podcast guesting is huge right now, specifically for anyone who wants to make sure that their business is not only found in Google, which is still very important, but also AI search. Podcasting, because of the Q&A format, which is also how people search, is incredible. So we book our clients as guests on podcast. That one interview usually will go on Spotify, on Apple, on the host's YouTube, often on the host's website. That's all of those platforms that will send a signal both to Google and to AI-powered search that this person must have something of value to say. Their business must be relevant. Look at all of those signals pointing to them. So booking our clients as guests on podcasts, huge. We write thought leadership articles. And now what we're going to be start doing in the new year is pitch them around to digital platforms. So not necessarily traditional media where we try to pitch you into, I don't know, Forbes or interview at CNN. It's digital blogs, digital publications, but again, with volume and still being relatable, relevant to the industry. Still, the goal is to make our clients searchable, foundable, their businesses as well, and really continue to amplify that visibility for them.
Yeah, absolutely. But even with AI, like one of the things that we needed to do, we did internally, is really identify our voice. So you still need to be able to have your own voice, because otherwise it's the AI voice. And that is, as you said, it's cliche. You can see that it's AI. I mean, I think the real value, or the real use of AI is that you can use AI, but make it sound like you. I mean, that is the trick. And that necessitates a professional like you to actually identify what is the voice, what is the subject, because it's also the subjects. You can use AI to perfect something to make sure you don't have grammar errors and editing errors. And then if, of course, getting it through a human editor is the best, but the subjects, the subjects still need to be thought by a human. You can ask AI to give you ideas, but you cannot have AI decide for you.
It can't be the thought leader because then it kills all original thought and it completely kills authenticity too. It's interesting. We had one client in particular. He's actually a fellow EO member. His name is Dave Westcott. We worked with him and then we set him up. We developed his brand, cleared his brand voice, all of those things. I think we did a bit of LinkedIn content with him, and then he continued on his own. And he has the messiest writing style of anyone I've ever seen on LinkedIn. It is so authentic. It is so him. There is nothing like structured and polished. I am sure that on and off there may be spelling mistakes, there are run-on sentences. It's beautiful because it's so real. And so for someone like him, for example, if he used, let's say, AI to remove it all and polish it up, it's going to sound like everyone else. I'm not saying anyone else needs to write like that because if it's not authentic to them, they shouldn't. But it's amazing. And it's been incredible to see how his reach continues to just skyrocket. He's seen incredible value from LinkedIn for his business as well. And on and off, I send him a message and I say, just keep it on. I've said to my team, I have one team member and she creates brand identity decks for clients. And a couple of times she submitted the first draft to us for review and it would have some spelling mistakes. And it's really interesting because I am a perfectionist, as you'd mentioned before, and it really irritates me. Like a spelling mistake kills me. If I know I sent something to someone, even in a WhatsApp message, and I made a spelling mistake and I can't go back and edit it, it's going to sit with me. But you know what? She sent it. And first it was like, spelling mistake, she's not detail oriented. And then I was like, oh my God, I know she wrote it and it wasn't AI. So I was telling my co-founder, maybe we're going to start including, even for our clients, spelling mistake here and the content here, just so it signals to the reader, this is, human generated. How funny.
It's the same thing with me. I'm hiring a technical writer right now, and I give them assessments, and then I see a spelling mistake, and I go like, okay, well, they didn't use AI. I didn't hire them still because I can't have people make mistakes or grammar mistakes.
Right.
But then when I see everything perfect, but it's not just a perfect because people can be perfect and I want them to edit. But when you can sense if something has a human spirit behind it or it's just a machine. You have that ability to perceive that, right? When you read something, you can see, you can go, oh, that's great. I'll have my AI answer your AI because I'm not interested in spending time answering your AI.
Which often what we see, right? Like you see on like an AI generated post with all the AI generated comments, and that's just it's terrible. What's interesting? I think that businesses that will survive in our space and services are businesses that will be able to over-index on what AI cannot do, and it's the feeling and the soul. Because AI will be able to do a lot of what we do and more and more and more, and same as you, more and more and more. But AI doesn't have soul. Well, it's never going to have that. It's going to get better at everything. They can get better at having a soul, right? Real feelings, real empathy, not the fake empathy. Oh, Marina, and you're right about everything.
You're amazing, beautiful. I can't believe how wonderful you write.
Because that's what my GPT tells me every single day. But when you tell me that about the summit, it's different because it's real and that's just fakery. So I think that, to the question you asked me before, what are we doing in the face of AI to still bring value? What the conversations we have with the team all the time is we want to over index on anything that's human, anything that makes, if you are our client and we make you feel a certain way, feel good, feel appreciated, feel how much we care, feel that we see you, feel that we're so excited about your success. We have clients that, just had books come out and like here are all their books. And I told my team that they are to order all their books and expense to us. So when you feel that you're cared about and that connection, especially as more and more and more and more and more is going to lose that human touch, I think that those are also the businesses that stand a chance of surviving. So for us, that's big focus too. The human.
I think so too. And it's the driving. So when you let go of the 7 writers, that must have been hard.
Horrific, especially for my business partner. And I'm also very much like, I'm Eastern European, I'm colder also, and I'm more like pragmatic, business. So there's that side. And also, I don't manage anyone in the business. Everyone reports to him. And so it was for him to deliver that news and to have those conversations. And so I did my best to give him time and space to do that instead of being like, let's go. This is what's happening. We're losing money. The business is losing money.
So what do they do, those writers? I mean, that's really the question that people have, I know, in terms of, if people are losing work for AI, what do those writers do?
So one of the things I can tell you though, Addie, because once we started seeing the writing on the wall, it's an interesting metaphor considering the context, is we're a fully virtually remote team, but I started recording. I do ad hoc video recordings for the team when I talk about things that are going on or updates, etc. And I kept flagging this, saying that everything is changing. This is how it's changing. The writing craft is becoming completely reinvented. And I kept including a call to action saying, if you are interested in seeing what you can do to reinvent yourself, what's happening, let's book a call, let's have a conversation, let's have a discussion. And just nobody was taking the initiative. I think that complacency is going to kill so many vocations, so many careers. And so that was really difficult. Only one person stayed on the team, but switched to a fully editing role. And I think that what writers can do, I think everyone, what AI is doing is it's eradicating everyone who's not world class. If you are great at what you do, you'll be employed. If you have light in the eye and you're excited, like we're hiring those people for anything, right? Like I'm working with a headhunting agency right now, and I said, I don't care about skill sets so much. I want someone who has like fire in the eye. They're excited. They want to work. They want to learn. Bring them on. We'll find them something to do, right? So I think people who say, I am a writer, it's all that I do, and I'm going to stay in my lane, and this is going to be it. It's not going to work. I'm a writer. I create a text, I submit, and that's it. AI can do that. So I think that it's such a huge period of reinvention to us, of course, as business owners. That's what we're talking about, but to so many people in so many jobs. So it was very difficult. It was huge change for us. It was exceptionally painful to both of us co-founders. My co-founder has a master's degree in English literature, and we created Brandable Leader as a writing house. And we envisioned typewriters everywhere, which we have one in our office. It's like proudly display a red one. And we just imagined that it's just going to be like a whole bunch of nerds who love to write. And all of a sudden, the business shifts so drastically away from that. It was not easy. It was not easy for any of us.
That's a great point. For me, we write procedures. So we don't write articles, but we write processes and procedures. But what I notice is like when we hire for technical writers, I have to make sure that they can write without any mistakes and identify them, because they can take what they wrote and they can run it through ChatGPT. But if you or any AI tool, but if you cannot recognize it yourself, you can't recognize mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. And I
I mean,
think
I tried that. It doesn't work. That's why I think what you did is brilliant. The editors are going to be the one that are necessary because they're the one who can take the writing and then humanize it or identify what's right and what's not.
and critical thinking,
That's
which is
right.
also crucial in your business, right? Because it's not about creating processes and procedures that are cookie cutter for everyone, right? It's been able to really, when you're working with a client, to pick up on the nuance, and something that's specific to them. That's really human, because it's just those models are not trained like that. They're trained on collective intelligence and, proposing something on the basis of collective intelligence. That intuition and nuance and be able to pick up on this and use critical thinking, maybe the client didn't mention, but using critical thinking, maybe didn't mention it, but you need it. All of those are going
And
to.
asking the right questions because, and it's also, it's not, and it never will be. I mean, it's definitely getting better, absolutely. But the ability to think again about the same thing, it just doesn't, because it changes. The model will change according to whatever you feed into the machine. A human can identify that this is not the same. So in terms of like that, what the client said is not the same as what the AI interpreted it, because what in the learning, it takes what the human said and compare it to the data that they have. So then the output will be a certain way. But that's going back into the soul of things, is looking at it and going, oh, okay, well, there can be a meaning, or let's develop it into a deeper meaning here that we can then take it deeper. Or
Absolutely, which is, the same thing that happened with translation, right? The translation industry got completely reinvented with machine translation. It's incredible how, on a pedestrian level, we all can just use it now for any kind of translation well enough. But if we're talking about more professional translation, you still, right? Like you can look at the translation and like, if you're a native speaker and you're like, no, that's not quite right. That doesn't feel quite right, right? So that critical thinking and the soul of things, those are the things that I think we as business owners have to continue over indexing on, seeing how we can retain and amplify it in our businesses.
I agree. I agree. You mentioned that you had to reinvent the business in some ways, and it's all about based on processes, and you decide on processes first. As you grow and you expand, because despite of all of that, you're still growing, expanding, and you are on a trajectory to do really, really well, because now you found, you kind of like there is all this confusion, like what do we do with this and that, but you figure out a way and go forward. What is your take about processes that got you to where you're at right now, as opposed to processes that will take you to the next level?
So this is more of, experience share, and this was a really interesting situation for us. So the first more than half of the year was quite soft for us in terms of revenue, and we're completing our fifth year as a business. And from the get-go, we just launched the business and was profitable right away and going up right away. So we got used to growing. That was great. Everything was great. And so we got to the process where, we created a lot of, processes and systems and Notion and documented and just all of those things. Very proud of ourselves. Haven't automated much yet, but at least documented everything. And then the year started, big election in the US, big election in Canada, lots of, uncertainty, insecurity, tariffs affecting our businesses. All of a sudden, sales became quite soft for us, which to us as the two co-founders was extremely, of course, nerve-wracking. We keep looking, at the numbers, what can be done. What we noticed, though, later on is to most of the team, it was really comforting. So what to us was a stressful situation, to them was quite comforting because everything was operating so well. We were operating as a well-oiled machine. And then as of, this quarter now coming to the end of it, all of a sudden sales again just completely skyrocketed. Once again, I just want to knock on wood because I'm Ukrainian, that's what we do. And so like went up. And so what happened was all of a sudden that meant we didn't necessarily have all the right people in place. So some of the processes started breaking. We needed different processes. So things started just getting messy. And of course, as things start breaking and clients are complaining, who do they complain to? The frontline staff. And one of my team members said, what's going on? What happened? We don't have processes. We're disorganized. What happened? All those things that she wasn't used to. She was a newer team member, so she got used to everything functioning properly. And I was overhearing her conversation with my co-founder, who was explaining to her and saying, listen, it's temporary. We're hiring new people. We're redefining some of the processes. We're looking at things. It's temporary. And he finishes the conversation, and I just come and stare at him. And I'm like, what do you mean temporary? I hope it's always, because this means we're growing. Things are breaking because we're growing. That's a thing that I want to continue. And then I had a follow-up discussion with her and told her the same thing. I said, breaking processes means there's something to break. Means A, they existed, which good for us. So a lot of companies don't have any processes. And then B, they're breaking because we're growing. That's a good thing. And she goes, are you sure about that? And I said, yes, that's what's happening. And so now we're in the process of reviewing a lot of them and creating new ones. And of course, then our next stage would be a lot more automation of processes that we will need to do because we will continue to grow.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I just published a blog for Inc.com about scalable processes. And one of the things that I wrote there is like, when you are writing processes, if they're not scalable, you're going to do it isolated in silos. Like the sales department will write their own, and the production department will write their own, but they have to be combined because the handoff is so important. Because if you're growing, you're going to sell to more people, but then you have to make sure that you have a certainty in your production that they can deliver, or your operations. So you can't write the processes in a silo. You have to be everyone in the organization have to be involved in order to make sure that the flow actually happens. So that's one thing. The other thing is to really look at exactly what you did in terms of where can be like potential bottlenecks or bottlenecks that happen. Where can it not, if there is going to be increased traffic, where's the process weak? Where we don't have enough? Like, let's say right now, if we onboard at once 10 different clients, can our onboarding process take it? And if not, what is it that we can do now where we are still comfortable in order to allow for the 10 new clients to onboard at the same time and get to that level, which, to your point, it can be the automation. So right now, let's say they're getting an email by the office manager. Okay, well, if at one day we get 10 and she has to do all the action, she's not going to have time to do that. So let's work on automating those emails, even though what's a big deal of sending one email, but let's think about how do we scale that to a whole different level.
Yeah, that's extremely helpful. And another issue that we run into, Addie, is as a smaller company, so we have a team of 15. In some roles, we only have one person for that type of a role, right? So for example, we only had one graphic designer. We didn't need more than one graphic designer because we don't do that much graphic design, but we still did need a graphic designer because we do enough. So she went on maternity leave. She was going to continue working while on maternity leave. And of course, which I should have looked into the future and said was not going to happen because I have 2 children. But you always want to work with a person, right? She was really afraid that we would find someone else, and we gave her a chance. Well, of course, a couple of months into being a new mother, she realized it's not sustainable and her mental health is going to suffer. She needs to step aside. So she steps aside, but then we don't have a graphic designer and you don't find one overnight. So we need to find a patch-up solution, right? So right now we have a great process of what happens when someone needs to request the graphic and how it's tagged and where it goes and everything that happens. Well, all of a sudden we don't have her, so we have to look for a patch-up solution. So we find an agency in Ukraine that we're collaborating with on certain projects, an agency in Canada collaborating on certain projects. Okay, but what's the process? Now they're not in Slack. Do we send an email to them? Who tracks this email? How do we have visibility of that email? Oh, we need to create like a Google Doc for them to collaborate. And what's the Google Doc? What's in it? Who has it? But in the meantime, we need graphics. So we don't have time to sit and figure out this temporary solution. And then we're telling everyone, don't get overly used to this solution because we are hiring. We are very actively interviewing. And so all of a sudden, it's this mess of who sends what, those temporary, patch up things, which we've realized is for sure a gap too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's really the time to look at your processes is now into the scalability before or as you scale. I mean, obviously you always want to make sure that you are moving forward, but don't put it into the future because the time is now to identify where processes can break and identify it ahead of time and then make sure that you revise it
It's
accordingly.
a challenge, right?
It is. It
You usually
absolutely
look at them once everything, right? Hits the fan, and then you go like, oh.
That's right. That's exactly right. And and when things are softer or slower, your tendency is like, okay, I'm going to jump right now into sales because I have to salvage things. So it's always, going back and forth on that one. So I know how that goes.
Right.
So, Marina, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. I mean, if people want to reach out to you and work with you, know more about you, how can they do it?
So definitely our website, which is brandofaleader.com. There's a link there to book a call and chat. And also I am as I told you last time, the only person with this spelling of the name, Marina Byezhanova, on LinkedIn. So anyone who wants to connect can copy and paste it into LinkedIn. They'll find me, and then I'd be delighted to connect.
Awesome. Well, Marina, it's been a pleasure having you on this podcast. Thank you so much. And I'm sure you're going to be here again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.